All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about an element you've almost definitely heard of, lithium. Now, for decades, it's had this reputation as a really powerful psychiatric drug. But what if it's also something else entirely? A brand new story is unfolding, and it could completely change how we think about this simple element and its role inside our brains.
And that right there is the central paradox, the big question we're tackling today. Is lithium this heavy-duty medication, or is it a vital micronutrient that every single one of us needs to survive and thrive? That's the puzzle we're going to piece together in this explainer.
You know, to really get this, we have to be super clear that we're talking about two completely different things. It's like a tale of two lithiums. On one hand, you've got pharmaceutical lithium carbonate. We're talking prescription doses of 900 to 1200 milligrams. But on the other hand, you have nutritional lithium, what you find in supplements, at these teeny-tiny doses of just 1 to 20 milligrams. I mean, the difference in scale is just astronomical.
And what's so important to remember is that this low-dose nutritional lithium isn't some weird foreign chemical. It's an essential trace mineral. It's already out there in our environment, which means we're all consuming small amounts of it every single day in our food and, yeah, even our drinking water. This idea is absolutely central to everything we're about to cover.
Okay, so this is where the story gets really, really interesting and becomes one of the biggest headlines in neuroscience right now. A huge study out of Harvard has just uncovered this stunning clue that might connect this simple little element to one of the most feared diseases on the planet, Alzheimer's.
The senior author of the study, a guy named Bruce Yankner, he put it so plainly. He said, the idea that lithium deficiency could be a cause of Alzheimer's disease is new and suggests a different therapeutic approach. Think about that for a second. This isn't just a small step forward. This is potentially a whole new way of looking at the disease.
So how in the world did they figure this out? Well, the team analyzed brain tissue from people with healthy brains and people in the early stages of dementia. And what they found was a total shocker. Out of 30 different metals they tested, lithium was the only one that was significantly lower in the brains with early-stage dementia. The only one.
But why? Why was it lower? This is where they uncovered this fascinating and kind of destructive process. It turns out that as those infamous amyloid plaques, those sticky protein clumps that are the hallmark of Alzheimer's, as they start to form, they act like a trap. They literally grab onto the brain's natural lithium and lock it away, which effectively starves the brain cells of this element they desperately need.
So, to see what would happen, they created mice that were deficient in lithium. And the results were staggering. In these mice, all the classic signs of Alzheimer's just went into overdrive. They saw this huge acceleration of plaques and tangles, crazy amounts of brain inflammation, the loss of those critical connections between neurons, and of course, really rapid memory loss. But here's the ray of hope. The researchers went looking for a solution. They tested different lithium compounds to see if any could get past those amyloid traps, and they found one. A special form called lithium orotate was uniquely able to sneak past the plaques without getting captured. And what happened next was nothing short of breathtaking. They gave this low-dose lithium orotate to mice that already had advanced Alzheimer's symptoms. And it didn't just slow the disease down, it reversed it. The treatment actually cleared up the pathology in the brain and fully restored the mice's memory. Just wow. I mean, that's an incredible result in an animal model, right? But it begs a huge question. How? How does lithium actually do all of this? What's going on inside our brain's chemistry that makes it so powerfully protective for our neurons?
Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is something called the GSK3 pathway. So in Alzheimer's disease, this enzyme GSK3, it just goes haywire. It becomes hyperactive, and that hyperactivity directly helps build those toxic plaques and tangles. But here's the kicker. Lithium is a potent direct blocker of GSK3. So by calming that enzyme down, it basically short-circuits the whole disease process at a fundamental level. This all falls under this really key scientific concept called neuroprotection. It's a fancy word, but it just means preserving the structure and function of our brain cells. And what all this research is screaming is that lithium, even at these really low doses, is one of the most powerful neuroprotective agents we've ever come across. And hey, it is not a one-trick pony. Beyond just blocking GSK3, lithium seems to have this whole toolkit of other superpowers. It helps promote the growth of brand new neurons. It has a positive influence on key mood regulators like serotonin and dopamine. And some studies even show it can increase the actual volume of gray matter in the brain. It's pretty incredible stuff. Okay, so the science in the lab is off the charts exciting.
But what happens when we step out of those controlled experiments and into the messy real world? Well, a brand new survey from King's College London gives us our very first look at what actual users of these over-the-counter lithium supplements are experiencing.
So first off, why are people even taking this stuff? According to the survey, the #1 reason is for anxiety. That's followed very closely by people trying to improve their cognition, and then for general mood support. So that gives us a really good snapshot of what people are hoping to get out of it.
But here's where the data gets really interesting. When asked what benefits they actually felt, the #1 reported benefit was cognition, which jumped ahead of both anxiety and mood. So it seems like people might start taking it for anxiety, but what they notice most is an improvement in their thinking and memory.
But the story has a twist, a big one. The researchers came to a very clear and frankly surprising conclusion in their report. They stated, side effects and withdrawal phenomena were more prevalent than anticipated. And this is a really crucial piece of the puzzle that we can't ignore.
Just how prevalent are we talking? A staggering 95%. Let that sink in for a second. 95% of the people in the survey reported experiencing at least one side effect. Now, this finding totally contradicts some of the earlier, smaller studies and tells us there's a lot more going on here than we thought.
And what were those side effects? Well, ironically, the most common ones were mood-related issues and anxiety, the very things people were often taking it to fix. Headaches, weight changes, and shakiness were also reported pretty frequently. It's just a powerful reminder that even natural supplements can have really complex effects on the body.
So let's pull back and look at the whole big picture. On one hand, we have this incredible promise from preclinical research, but on the other, we have a pretty complicated and cautionary story from real-world users. So this brings us to the big question. What is the future of lithium?
This really highlights the central gap in what we know right now. On the promise side, the results from lab research on neurodegeneration are just off the charts. But on the problem side, there's an almost complete lack of rigorous, controlled human trials for these low-dose supplements to actually confirm if they're safe and if they even work.
So the big takeaway here is one of cautious optimism. Researchers are really clear about this. People should not start taking these supplements on their own, because safety and effectiveness in humans just haven't been proven yet. But there is this powerful hope, a real optimism that lithium, in some form, could be a major key to protecting our brains as we get older.
And that leaves us with this one last, provocative thought to chew on. If all this research pans out, could we one day see a future where lithium is considered an essential nutrient, just like we think of iron or vitamin C? Could it one day be added to our food or our water as a massive public health measure to protect the brain health of an entire population? It's a pretty wild question to think about.